Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. For once, I have nothing to sell you here. These are all privately owned. But a gentleman who is also a scholar of De Bethune and probably the most impressive collector outside of the factory's museum has offered me the opportunity to shoot all three Maxi Chrono variants in the same place in the same video. So, sir, thank you so much. Everyone else, gear up because this is going to be cool. So I should mention that there are several other De Bethune chronograph models out there, dating from the very first, the DB1 chronograph of 2002. That was their first model. There's the DB8 with the number, the DB8 spelled in letters, watches like the DB12 calendar chronograph. There are others. What's important here is that these all exhibit the Maxi Chrono system. So we'll start with the one that was sequentially first, although I must add the caveat that the original 2006 DB21 was a prototype, and it featured the shingle-like case profile of the DB20, 22, and 24. So if you're familiar with those, you know that there are shingle-like cases. They're nothing like the DB28-inspired floating lug setup you see here. So let me just add that this watch is a 2019 DB21 re-edition. 10 of these were made in titanium. The original is the extra watch, the prototype with the shingle case. So there are only 11 DB21s of all descriptions in the world. So this is the 2019 titanium floating lug 10-piece edition. The Maxi Chrono dial, however, is exactly like the 2006 prototype. You can see we have 5 hands. 3 of them coaxial chronograph counters. We have a 60-minute chronograph counter, a 60-second chronograph counter, and then you can see the lowermost of the hands is actually a 24-hour marker. So you can time 60 minutes, 60 seconds, and 24 hours. And because this is an El Primero style high beat operation, it's 10 beats per second, 36,000 vibrations per hour, and thus the smallest increment you can actually read is 1/10 of a second. The DB21s are known for this distinctive bullseye aesthetic, and as you can see, it's highly layered, but also very intricate. De Bethune making its own cases, dials, and movements here. They certainly had their work cut out for them. The case itself, I measure it at approximately 44.4 millimeters diameter, just like the DB26, which shares the same fundamental design. It's 12.4 millimeters thick, and the full extension of the lugs is 58.1 fully extended, 53.5 fully compressed, 26 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throwing this on the wrist, my wrist is 16 centimeters circumference. It wears nicely, but it is large. It's not thick. It's anything but thick. It looks thicker than it is. It's very, very light on the wrist, and you can see very, very comfortable. But I do think if your wrist is substantially smaller than mine, you're going to want to go with the DB29, and I'll show you why that is in a moment. This is a very comfortable watch. It's an easy fit, and it's super light, but it is fairly broad. And this is the angle where you can see how far out the watch pushes to the edge of my wrist. Now check this out. I'm going to put it on Sammy the scale. We'll check the mass of this watch, and as you can see, it's well under 3 ounces, 78 grams. So a very light watch indeed, almost toy-like. You can see around back, we've got the De Bethune caliber that is designed specifically for chronograph use. So we have a very stable and steady oscillator. Denis Flageolet felt the need to more firmly anchor the oscillator on a chronograph, so there is no triple pair shoot here. Instead, we have a beautifully decorated gold and polished steel balance bridge. We have the 2016 patent titanium and white gold balance, De Bethune's patented balance hairspring design. We have a silicone escape wheel of De Bethune's own design for minimizing mass, reducing the need for lubricants. Twin barrels, 5 days of power reserve, 36,000 vibrations per hour, and we have 3 column wheels. That's part of the Maxi Chrono concept. It's not just the 3 coaxial chronograph hands or the 5 coaxial hands in total. It is also this idea that we have 3 separate clutches: absolute clutch for seconds, oscillating pinion for minutes, and lateral clutch for hours. The idea being that these different clutches would be designed for optimum precision given the needs of seconds, minutes, and hours. And you can see that the seconds hand does start quite smoothly. It uses the absolute clutch. The absolute clutch is similar to a vertical clutch in that it has no inherent play, but it doesn't have the continuous drag because a vertical clutch is always partially engaged By eliminating that flaw, you get the smoothness of a vertical clutch, but you get a more efficient watch with a longer power reserve. And of course, you don't have to drag on timekeeping. You can also see the central minutes, the central hours, and a dial here that features a combination of red, blue, silver, and then as we get closer to center, fired blue titanium assembly hardware that mirrors the assembly hardware on the bezel. You can see this is not a typical DB28 case, so don't call it a DB28. DB28 cases are not perfectly round, unless they are the Maxi Chrono. We'll get there in a second. Taking a quick look, you can see microlight engraving, which is lathe engraving, but de Bethune style, so it doesn't look like a Breguet-inspired rosette. And the movement's 30 millimeters, so it nicely fills this case back. Okay, also take a look at the unusual treatment of the lugs. They're fired blue titanium, but they're also matte finished, which gives them a cool low glare look. The flank of the case is very different. We have a waist gunner style dial where the crown sits at the bottom, and then we have the index up at the top, so that's what's going on right there. And again, you can see all the substructures below the polished steel bridge. They are satinated, media blasted, beveled, and in the case of the steel chronograph components, both satinated and beveled. And with 3-column wheels, actuation of the Maxi Chrono in all its forms is super, super crisp. Okay. All of these are 30 meters water resistant, so don't take them swimming. What's fascinating here is that this is actually a bigger watch. I measure this 45.9 millimeters at the bezel, which is the broadest part of the watch. But this DB28 Maxi Chrono, which launched in 2014, actually wears smaller than the 21 you just saw, because this is a rare example on shorter lugs. So let me explain. Whereas the 21 re-edition was on the large lugs, which are 58.1 extended and then 53.5 compressed, right here we have a short set of lugs, 50.2 millimeters when fully extended, and then 47.2 when fully compressed. So we have a bigger case, but shorter lugs by far. Both of them have 26 millimeter spacings between the lugs. This is a nice thin watch right here at 12.7 millimeters thick. Taking a quick look at the watch on my wrist, you can see this actually fits a little bit better, though it is far heavier than the 21 Maxi Chrono. What's interesting here is that if you look at it in profile, you can start to see how this really would fit underneath a dress cuff. And with the short lugs, this wears well on a wrist as small as 15 centimeters, maybe even 14 centimeters circumference. As you can see how much clearance I've got on either side. Now, you've probably noticed by now that the case is 5N red gold, and then the lugs are something else. And what they are is DLC-coated hardened zirconium. So the idea here is that the more vulnerable lugs will be a harder and more scratch-resistant material. This one is a bullhead winder, so the crown's up the top, a little bit more conventional. We've got a buckle in each one of these cases that is designed to echo the design of the floating lugs. But here we have a two-tone watch, so we also have a two-tone buckle. That kind of design consistency and parallelism is a hallmark of de Bethune. Taking a look now at the strap, is a beautiful strap, but anyone can get the strap. Alex crown, a sort of soft Epsom leather pattern on the bottom, suede on the top. We've got a folded edge, monotone stitch, maybe a little bit of bolstering to add volume. We have the ogival or bullet tip caps that are those holdovers from the very first de Bethune watch of 2002, the DB1. Anthracite dial with fired titanium hardware. It might look like gold, it's actually fired titanium. Same type of layout with the Maxi Chrono, same triple clutch, triple column wheel, but we have different hands here, and you can see the dial's a little bit more refined. Rather than the highly technical aesthetic of the 21, here we have something a little bit more classical. This was launched the same year as the 29 Maxi Chrono Tourbillon, and I think the idea was to create a air de famille between the two. Obviously, this is a much more accessibly priced watch. They're not accessible in the big scheme. So we have different style of dial, different style of hands. And you can see that there are inserts in the hands. They're actually a different color for the hour and the minute hands. You can more easily tell them apart from the hours, minutes, and seconds of the chrono, but also that little bit of contrast does help in picking up the hands, period. Flipping it over here, you can see there's not a whole lot changes, but we will chart some of those changes. As we take a closer look at the case backs, you can see we're looking at two different balance wheels. This is the 2016 patent balance wheel right here. And then this is the 2010 patent balance wheel. So this is titanium and white gold, and this is a combination of silicon and then I believe a white gold rim. but you can see it's shaped differently. This is just the advancing state of the art in DB21 balance wheels, and that's why DB21 has at least 10 patents on balance wheels. Most companies would be happy to have one balance wheel of their own. That is, most companies buy their balance wheels. At DB21, Denny scraps the old design as soon as he gets a new one that works better. He is totally unsentimental about chronometry. In every other regard, you can see the movements are very, very similar, and from a technical standpoint, they're both 5-day, 5 hertz, triple column wheel, triple clutch, and exactly the same size and decoration. Where things change is when we bring in the DB29 Maxi Chrono Tourbillon. Now, this is my second favorite DB21 after my own DBD. I would love to own one. This is the most misunderstood watch that DB21 makes because it's rated as a 46, and it's so uncommon that you could be a very committed DB21 collector, visit the factory regularly, have a large number of DB21 watches, including custom pieces, and still never see one of these. In 12 years of doing this, and I suppose now 5 years of my company and DB21 being one, this is the first example I've seen, including during my factory visits. So this is a 46, but it's also 46 lug-to-lug. It is a lugless watch. So it's 46 in diameter, 46 lug-to-lug, only 13.2 thick, and it's got a 24 millimeter spacing between the lugs. So once you put this on the wrist, you realize though it has the largest diameter of these watches, it is the easiest to wear. Super short across the wrist. Keep in mind that a Datejust 36 on a solid end link Jubilee bracelet is going to be 45.3 across the wrist. This is only 0.7 of a millimeter larger than that. So if you're a lady who wants something approaching the ultimate DB21, this could be on deck for your collection, if you can pay for it. These are by custom request only, so I don't think there's such a thing as a standard 29. You're going to have to specify something, be customized. It costs over $300,000. Any dial, any metal, any decoration, gem setting, engraving, marquetry, enamel, it is available. You'll pay, but it's worth it. By the way, Dreamwatch 5s are much more common than these. Okay, about these lugs, you can see these too preserve the ogival design of the lugs, the bullet tips, suede, again, Alex crown, nice strap, pairs well. Notice the junction between strap and case, whereas here there's a little bit more of a visual break between the lugs and the case. This is perfectly integrated, and there's a little recess where it sits inside the lug. You can also see how the case is wrapped over the lug, and it's a monoblock case, so there's no separate bezel and mid-case. It's a seamless look. Mono pusher, yes. Coaxial for activating the 3 clutches and the 3 column wheels. But what's really cool here is that you've also got a spring-loaded caseback. Now, Patek Philippe brags about the 5227 having a hidden hinge, but if you look hard, you can see it. Whereas here, the hinge truly is hidden. You cannot see it. It's a spring-loaded opening, and then you can see the hinge is internal. The movement is different from what you've seen before. Now, I would say these are like 4-day chronometric, 5-day absolute power reserves, so I'm just throwing that out there. If you're running the chrono with the tourbillon, it's going to be more like 4. If you're not running the chrono, it's going to be more like 5. 36,000 vibrations per hour, but what changes here is we now have a tourbillon regulator. This is a 30-second tourbillon, and it makes 2 circuits per minute, so that's why it's a 30-second tourbillon. You could see that earlier versions of this watch would have featured a previous generation balance wheel. This one has the latest 2016 patent titanium and white gold balance. Again, still a high beat rate, 5 hertz, 10 beats per second, still twin barrels. All 3 of these watches feature self-adjusting patented twin barrels. 90 turns is a full wind, but even if you go past that, you cannot damage it by overwinding, so just keep that in mind. That's a nice piece of, I guess you could say, mind or comfort factor with these watches, especially given the delicacy of 450 pieces, 53 jewels, and a movement that's more complicated than some minute repeaters. That said, it's not delicate in the strict sense that you can't use it every day. This is a great daily driver, as long as you're not doing high-impact aerobics or shooting or golfing, playing tennis or diving. This is a watch that is designed to be worn every day, and it is an award winner at the GPHG in 2014. This was the chronometer level, I guess you could say, chronograph type winner, and it's hard to say that. Why am I mixing the two? Because the same movement, albeit without the chronograph, won the chronometry prize in the DB25 Stradivarius Tourbillon in 2018, and in 2014, this Maxi Chrono Tourbillon won the chronograph prize. So 2 versions of the same movement have won the chronometry prize at the GPHG and the chronograph prize. But properly, the 29 Maxichrono Tourbillon in my hand was the chronograph prize winner in 2014, 4 years before the 25 Stradivarius Tourbillon won the chronometry prize. So why is that important on this model? Well, that's because at de Bethune in general, when you have a tourbillon, it should be running to within a second a day. And the factory endorses that. That is the factory claim, that it should be as accurate as about 1/3 to 1/2 a second gained. So that's per day. This is a true chronometer grade movement, even if it's not COSC certified. So keep in mind that it actually has a double pedigree in the 25 and the 29. It's won both prizes. This is a really cool watch. I'm not going to argue. You get a lot for your money. You pay a lot to get a lot, and with full customization and the rarity, this is sometimes mentioned as a limited edition. It's not limited by number, it's limited by price, circumstance, and the number of people who can see past the 46mm rating to order one of these full custom. So if you like this, I can get you one of these. Again, it's going to be very expensive and by custom order, but if you want something approaching the ultimate de Bethune, and maybe even the ultimate watch, hey, reach out to me. Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.